If you've spent years carrying the quiet, heavy sense that you've let everyone down, that you were supposed to become something more, that there's a version of you the people who love you were waiting for and you somehow failed to deliver, and that underneath all your effort, you are, at the core, a disappointment. I want you to put that weight down for a few minutes and look at it properly. You're not a disappointment. You're misaddressed. That verdict was written about a person who was never actually you, and it got delivered to your door by mistake. Let's be honest about where that feeling comes from. Disappointment is the gap between an expectation and a reality. Someone expected something, and reality, meaning you, came in somewhere short of it. But notice the hidden assumption buried in that math. It assumes the expectation was accurate. It assumes someone, somewhere, correctly understood who you were meant to be, and you simply failed to arrive there. And almost always, that's the part that's broken. The expectation wasn't a faithful portrait of your real self. It was a projection, a hope, a fear, a script written by someone else, hung on you before anyone knew who you actually were. There's a clinical psychologist, a meditation teacher named Tara Brach, who has spent decades sitting with people drowning in exactly this feeling. She gave it a name that, the moment I heard it, explained half my life. She calls it the trance of unworthiness. A trance, because it operates underneath conscious thought. You don't decide you're a disappointment, you just move through the world already convinced of it. The way you don't decide the floor is solid, you simply walk on it. And here's what Brach found in all those years of listening. The trance almost never originates in any real failing of the person. It's installed early, absorbed from 1,000 small moments. The sigh when you weren't what they hoped, the comparison to a sibling, the love that seemed to arrive only when you performed. The child concludes, "There's something wrong with me." And the adult lives inside that conclusion as if it were simple fact. What Brach points to is that this isn't a verdict you reasoned your way into. It's a trance you fell into before you had any say, which means it can be questioned. A fact can't be argued with. But a trance can be woken from. Let me tell you about someone. I'll call her Priya. Priya was the daughter who was supposed to be a doctor. It was decided before she could speak, in the way some families decide a child's whole life as a kind of repayment for their own sacrifices. She wasn't unloved. She was loved fiercely, but conditionally, and the condition was a white coat and a title that the family could say out loud with pride. Priya tried. She got most of the way there, and then, somewhere in the middle of it, she realized with a terror she'd never admitted to anyone that she didn't want this life. She wanted to teach, to work with small children, the way she always had at every family gathering, the kids gravitating to her like she was warm. When she told them, the room went quiet in that particular way. And from that day, Priya wore the word like a coat she couldn't take off. Disappointment. She could see it in how her father introduced her now, the slight hesitation, the subject changed. She had become, in the family story, the one who didn't live up. And she believed it completely. She'd had a destiny, and she dropped it. What took Priya years to see, and what finally set her down, was that the destiny was never hers. It had her name on the envelope, but it was addressed to a fantasy, the doctor-daughter her parents had imagined to soothe their own fears about the future. That person didn't exist. There had only ever been Priya, who lights up around children, who teaches like breathing. The disappointment wasn't a measure of how far she'd fallen from herself. It was the sound of a projection dying, and a projection, she realized, has no right to grieve the loss of a person who was never real. She hadn't failed a destiny. She'd finally refused to keep impersonating someone she wasn't. So if you've been wearing that word, here are a few things to hold on to. First, ask who wrote the expectation, and whether they ever actually saw you. So much of the weight we carry is the weight of being measured against a version of ourselves someone else invented, for their comfort, their image, their unhealed disappointments. That phantom self was never consulted with the real you. When you feel like a disappointment, pause and ask, a disappointment compared to what? And whose vision was that, really? Half the time, the answer dissolves the verdict on contact. Second, understand the difference between disappointing a person and being a disappointment. You can fall short of what someone wanted from you in a single moment. That's just being human, in relationship with other humans who want things. That is not the same as your existence being a letdown. The trance does a sleight of hand. It takes a specific gap, in a specific moment, in someone else's projection, and converts it into a permanent fact about your soul. Refuse the conversion. You disappointed an expectation. You are not a disappointment. Third, the cure is not finally meeting the expectation. This is the trap so many people spend their whole lives inside, believing that if they just achieve enough, become enough, perform enough, the verdict will lift. It won't, because the verdict was never about achievement. It was a trance of unworthiness, and you cannot perform your way out of a trance. You can only wake from it. And waking begins the moment you stop accepting an inheritance of shame that was handed to you before you could refuse it. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, writing privately to himself in the middle of the night, reminded himself again and again of one steadying truth: that you have power over your mind, not outside events, and that realizing this, you will find your strength. He was wrestling with the same thing you are. The endless pressure of what others expected an emperor to be, and he kept returning to the one piece of ground that was actually his, not their picture of him, but his own conduct, his own character, the self he could actually answer for. That's the ground I want you to come home to. The disappointment you've been carrying was a letter addressed to a stranger, a fantasy version of you, dreamed up by people who haven't yet met the real one. It was never yours to carry, so set the envelope down, unopened. You were not a letdown, and you never were. You were simply misaddressed. And the person they were waiting for was never coming because you were here all along.